Yo, it's good. Today we're going to be talking about my net worth. I recently turned 26, and every year as a tradition on my birthday, I sit down and I go through my finances and figure out what my net worth is to number one, make a mental note of what it is and see how far I've progressed, and number two, to sit back and reflect on the year before and make goals for the year after. And I want to make it clear in this video that I'm not trying to flex in any way, shape, or form. This is just a way for me to promote financial transparency and provide a data point and really put my money where my mouth is. Okay, with all those disclaimers out of the way, my net worth on my birthday was $491,251.60. And for my Canadian friends watching, this is in USD, but there are some parts that are in Canadian that I will mention when I get to it. Okay, so to break it down further, 3% of my net worth is in cash, and this equates to around $15,000. This is mostly in an emergency fund plus a buffer that I use for my day-to-day spending. So this emergency fund is around $14,000, which equates to 7 months of living expenses. So month to month, I usually spend around $3.5 to $4,000. Last year, it averaged to, I believe, $4,000 a month. But in an emergency situation, I can very easily cut a lot of my extra spending and bring that number very close to $2,000. And if I'm being completely honest, I could probably get it lower than $2,000. Now, most of this emergency fund is sitting in a money market fund on Fidelity, where it's gaining 4.5 to 5% interest. I can't remember exactly what the interest rate is. And the other portion is sitting in a checking account, which I can deploy immediately if I need to. Now, this cash percentage is pretty low at 3%, but my reasoning behind this is that I want to be invested in the market as much as I can while I'm young. Like I said, I'm only 26. That might be kind of old for you guys, but in the grand scheme of your investing life, 26 is a very young age. Now, if the goal is to keep as much money as you can invested, you don't want to have to pull out or sell any investments if something bad happens. So with the cash out of the way, we can talk about my investments, which makes up 97% of my assets. First, we'll talk about crypto. This is valued at 12% of my portfolio, or roughly $61,000. So the absolute number, the 61,000, as well as the percentage, have increased pretty drastically from the last time I made this video, mostly due to the fact that I've been investing more into crypto, as well as the fact that Bitcoin has increased a lot over the past year or so. I've also rotated a lot of the other coins that I was holding into Bitcoin and into Ethereum, so that's consolidated my position a little bit. And for full disclosure, I also hold two very degenerate meme coins, which honestly have been doing pretty well. Next up, we have my regular stock investments. Now, this is split between my Roth IRA, which is 4.5%, my 401k at 29%, and my US and my Canadian brokerage accounts together at 50%. So for my Canadian friends watching, roughly 55,000 of this money, or $75,000 Canadian, is in my Canadian brokerage account back in Canada. But I've converted all of it to USD just to make it a little bit easier to visualize and watch. So the majority of what I invest into across all of my investment accounts is actually pretty boring. A large majority of it is low-cost ETFs, something like VTI. And on the Canadian side, I'm investing as extra, which gives me a little bit of international exposure as well. So like I said, it's pretty boring, with the exception of my RSUs from Microsoft. From my initial vest date for my RSUs to where it is right now, my stocks have risen over 50%, which in turn has done a lot of the moving for my portfolio, which on one hand is great because, the number is bigger. But on the other hand, now Microsoft stock owns a large portion inside my portfolio, and it's getting to the point where I'm a little bit nervous in terms of diversification. So now I'm kind of at a crossroads. The question is, do I sell and take on them some tax so I can re-diversify into other assets, or do I just kind of hold and try to aggressively invest into other assets in order to balance out the distribution a little bit better? There's also a possibility of if and when I move back to Canada where I can adjust my cost basis for free. So I might just consider doing that as well. I'm wondering what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comments. Now, if you're wondering how I was able to invest this much at this age, the short and sweet of it is I've been investing since I was 18 years old. So I've had a pretty big head start. And on top of that, I have a very well-paying job considering my age. And I focus a lot on investing and paying myself first. So, but totaling all of my assets together, which is my stocks and my cash, we get $498,262.33. From that, we can subtract my only liability, which is my Canadian student loan, which is valued at approximately $7,000 USD. So for those of you who are new to the channel, I studied at McMaster University in Canada, where I got my bachelor's in computer engineering, and then I ended up moving to the US. So when I graduated from school, I had around $35,000 Canadian worth of debt, and over time, I've been slowly throwing money at it to the point where it's gotten down to now $10,000 Canadian, which is roughly $7,000 USD. So because of how student loans are structured in Canada, a large portion of my student loan is actually interest-free at 0%. So my effective interest rate is very, very low. I think in total I've paid like, $20, $30 worth of interest. Now the conventional wisdom around this is to actually not pay off your loan early, and is to pay the minimums and invest the difference so that you can make money on the delta on the spread. But if I'm being honest, I want to pay off this loan earlier rather than later, just because I want the peace of mind to be debt-free. I don't like the idea of having debt, even if it is interest-free. So if you subtract my liabilities from my assets, we get my total net worth, which is $491,251.60, which is actually almost double what my net worth was last year. Well, technically, it was an 85% increase from my last net worth video. So doing a deeper dive, we can see that my absolute numbers obviously went up, but the percentages stayed around the same with the exception of crypto, which doubled. And I've also knocked out $3,000 worth of my student loans from my last year's check-in video. Now the market over the past year has gone honestly ballistic. The S&P 500 hit all-time highs, Microsoft hit all-time highs, and Microsoft is a large portion of my portfolio and also a very large mover in the S&P 500. So everything has kind of gone up. Doing a quick check on my investment app, I've seen that year to date from June last year to June this year, my portfolio has gone up around 30%, which is a lot. Now, I haven't really done anything special for my investments. I've mostly been investing into VTI. I think this overall shows how important it is to be in the market in general. And I know it's very annoying to hear that time in the market is better than timing the market, and like, you know, compound interest is like a tree, all these, like, I don't want to say stupid, but like very overused sayings or phrasings about the stock market. But honestly, it's very true. Now, just another note about net worths in general. I think that tracking this number is not something you should do very often. I really only sit down and add everything up once a year on my birthday. Like, you know, time to time, I'll check the app and I'll do a little bit of mental math and like napkin math to try to figure it out, but I won't sit down and actually crunch the numbers until it's my birthday. But the reason I think it's important not to check is because the market moves how the market moves, and you can't really control it that much. You can only really control your inputs into the system, and the system's going to return whatever it does to you, right? And I think this is especially true as your net worth grows to larger numbers. Like for me, a 0.5% change in either direction is going to swing upwards of $2,000, which is kind of insane because that's a lot of money. Speaking of market swings, I'm 26 years old and I'm a couple of paychecks away or one favorable market swing away from hitting $500,000 at the age of 26, which on one hand is surreal to say out loud and even think about and imagine, but on the other hand, it kind of feels empty. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm very cognizant of how lucky I am to be able to take advantage of these opportunities that I have and to have such a high net worth at such a young age. Now, I've been cooking with this idea for a while and I will probably center a whole entire video around it, so I guess you get a sneak peek, but I think the decisions in your life are kind of like a tree, where the decisions you make and the goals that you work towards are going to impact the way that this tree branches out. And some decisions are going to be really big branches. Like for me, for example, moving to the US was a very big branch decision. That was a very obvious fork in the road. Where on the other hand, something like choosing what you want to wear today, like this shirt or whatever, right? That's a relatively small decision. But like I said, it's a decision nonetheless. But I realize no matter how many objectively good decisions you can make, there are some that are just made for you. And I like to think about those kind of like the base of the tree or like the trunk of the tree. These types of decisions are like where you're born, who your parents are, what kind of upbringing you had, what kind of opportunities you had when you were a kid. You don't really have effect on that. You can't really do anything about that. Like you're 4, you're going to be like, I want to go study a good school. Like that's not going to happen. The reason that I'm saying all this is to say that my trunk or my foundation has been very good. And a large reason as to why I'm here today is because of the hard work that my parents put in. And I guess you watching right now probably don't understand why FIRE and why investing is so important to me. But for me, I truly feel that I have to make the most of this opportunity that I have, given how much has been sacrificed for me to be here. And it's kind of the surreal feeling that I was talking about. Like I was able to tell my moms like, hey, like, dude, all the hard work you did, all the hard work I did, like we finally got to like this milestone. Like I'm so excited. And my mom, when I told her, she was so excited for me. But on the other hand, it's also kind of empty. And like, yes, my net worth number has gone up and I've smashed every objective qualifiable metric for money at age, right? As I get older and as my net worth grows, I'm starting to ask myself, how are the other things in my life that are not as quantifiable, right? Like that don't have as clear metrics, like am I fulfilled? Am I happy? And I understand this is a very privileged thing to say, but I still can't scratch this feeling of being deeply unfulfilled. So I travel a lot, but since January, I've not been able to leave the US as part of my green card process. And because of this, I started to realize like the reason that I like traveling is to escape Seattle and by extension of that, escape the life that I have here at the moment. Now, don't get me wrong, by every qualifiable metric in terms of money, my life here is amazing. And I mean, it makes sense because the whole goal of me initially coming to the US was to invest all this money and, you know, progress my career and progress my FIRE goal faster. And all throughout university, this is the life that I dreamed of, right? To be in the States, to be working. And now that I have it and I'm stuck here and I can't leave, I'm kind of starting to realize that it's not very fulfilling, at least for me. Now, I won't lie, a big reason for that is actually my fault. Purposely didn't put a lot of emphasis or try really hard to make friends and make genuine connections and roots in the city because I knew eventually that I would leave. Now, the past 3 years I've been living here, I've been essentially living 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And because of what I have back home in Canada, my friends and my family and my relationships, I feel that I can't fully commit to Seattle. When I made this video last year, I talked a lot about being in your mid-20s and trying to find your purpose after all those years of schooling. And I will say those feelings for me were true then and honestly are still true now. Like, I still don't know what my purpose is. I think a lot of those feelings were actually misguided or misdirected feelings of being lonely and not having a community here in Seattle. which again, I will say is mostly my fault. As I'm just sitting here talking, I'm realizing that I probably just need a fresh start, a shake up or something, because I don't think I could do another year of this. And this time last year, one of the biggest decisions on my mind was if I was going to pursue the green card or not. And I'm happy to say, while I haven't figured out the whole entire thing, I have made the commitment to getting the green card, and I'm happy with the decision. I now have a goal that I can work towards, and part of getting to that goal is getting the green card. So for me, this is a step in the right direction, and I'm so happy to have the weight of the decision lifted off my shoulders. Some of my other non-financial goals in my last year's video was to get to 1K subs, which I did. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And also getting a promotion at work, which unfortunately did not pan out. But despite that, I'm still pretty happy with where I am in my career. I'm working on cool projects and I have a lot of ownership over the things that I work, which is something that I really wanted. Now, one common theme that has popped up across all of my videos is this idea of not spending a lot of money and over investing. And I'm also happy to say that for the most part, I've got that under control. I no longer feel guilty about spending money on things I enjoy, and I'm overall just a lot more chill when it comes to spending. I'm realizing despite me investing so much, if I invested like an additional 5K or whatever, right, it wouldn't make that much of a difference, considering I invest so much already. So instead of investing this like figurative 5K into my portfolio, I've been instead investing that 5K into my hobbies and into, relationships and doing things that I enjoy. In terms of numbers, I'm 20% away from my FIRE number, but I realized that compound interest works in magical ways, and I know that my net worth will only grow exponentially from here. So with those facts in mind, I'm okay to not necessarily coast, but take my foot off the gas just a little bit when it comes to investing. Now, in terms of predictions for next year, I don't really want to make a prediction for my net worth because for the last 2 years I've been wrong, and it's made me realize that the only thing I control is my inputs, so there's no point in worrying about the output, right? Like what's going to happen. So I just want to continue staying the course, doing what I'm doing, because obviously I think it's been working. Now, I also want to keep grinding YouTube and growing YouTube and sharing my journey with all of you. I really want to start a community of young people who are motivated to reach FIRE. So I've actually created a Discord a while back. In this Discord, we talk about, money and stuff. So if you're interested, I'll leave it in the description. You can go check it out. And I guess another fun goal that I have is to do some crazy hikes this summer. I'm planning to do the enchantments. And for those of you who are not from the Seattle area, it's like a 31-kilometer hike in one day. So I'm really excited for that. Hopefully I don't die, but it should be fun. And if you're curious about my last year's net worth video, you can watch it right here.